Clash Royale, Trackmania Turbo, wrestling nostalgia, and remembering how to chew food. This is Staying In. What else?
Oh no, I've got that burning sensation when you eat chocolate.
What burning sensation when you eat chocolate? You have a burning sensation when you eat chocolate.
You know when you eat chocolate?
I'm already going to say no. I'm already going to say whatever your thing is going to say that. Oh, no, I don't understand, because you come up with some random rubbish.
Dan, you've eaten chocolate before.
I have eaten chocolate before, but I guarantee what you're about to say I've not experienced.
When you eat chocolate, sometimes if you eat too much chocolate, or if the chocolate hits you right at the back of your throat at a weird angle, it creates a bit of a burning sensation.
Okay, so you're eating Terry's chocolate orange.
Yeah.
You are chewing the segments first, aren't you?
Mostly.
Because that's where it scratches on the back of your throat, because you're not chewing your food.
Mostly.
We shouldn't. You're 30 years old, Pete. We shouldn't have to be telling you how to chew your food. Should we? Really?
Terry certainly shouldn't be.
Terry
Terry
is,
Terry.
Yeah, he is an assistant to your illness.
Yeah,
He's allowing you to scratch your own throat with his segments.
Mm.
You could read into that whatever you want.
Yeah.
I still need to play you at Clash Royale.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I have put approximately 1 billion hours into Clash Royale now, and I don't know, like, I know we do still need to play one another, but your level and my level are so disparate.
What level are you?
I'm like level 7? 6?
I'm also level 6.
Oh, are you level 6 as well?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I've been putting a lot of time into that game.
Yeah, the thing with the multiplayer side of things with Clash Royale is it's difficult to. There's no balancing by necessity, because obviously it's a free-to-play downloadable mobile game. So if you balance things out, it's like, well, that kind of negates any transactions that you might have done beforehand, and obviously they want you to spend money. So, but how are you? Obviously, this was now not to blow my own horn, Dan, but this was another of my amazing free-to-play game suggestions. I was like, Dan, dude, download Clash Royale.
I would accept
you will
that
love
it was one of your free-to-play game suggestions. I'm not sure I'd necessarily agree with one of your many amazing ones, because I don't think there've been that many amazing suggestions.
Yes, there have been. What are you talking about? Boom Beach.
Okay, name another one.
You played Rival Kingdoms a little bit, and
a little bit, and then I stopped because I didn't like it.
Yeah,
Tiny Realms, didn't like it.
Did you not like Tiny Realms?
No.
Oh, you terrible man.
But anyway, yes, I'm really enjoying Clash Royale. I like the strategy of it.
Like, how would you seriously, like, I've been really thinking about how you actually describe what the game is, because people have asked me. I've talked with people who play Clash of Clans, and they've said, "Oh, well, what kind of game is it?" And the only thing I've managed to say is, "Well, you should just download it," because, like,
it's sort of a tower defense game.
But it's not that, like, it's not a tower defense game. Like, it feels like maybe it's a card game, maybe it's Clash of Clans, maybe it's a MOBA, maybe it's a.
I'd probably say the closest thing you've got is probably a MOBA.
Yeah,
because it's just it's you're balancing that defense versus offense with a range of different kind of attackers. But obviously you're controlling each of them kind of separately. It is it's not a difficult game to understand, but I agree it's a difficult game to describe. Because just in my mind, fundamentally, it's a very simple game. But try and explain it, and you think, I'm not explaining it right.
Yeah, because when you start explaining it, when you start saying, like, oh, so you choose from a deck, you have a deck of cards, and you go into each match with a set deck of cards that you've decided upon, and you level those cards up outside of the game, and they have different abilities, and then you play them to the field, but then but you don't play them as cards. The cards transform into essentially units, which then you don't control those units after you've set them into the thing.
I would say that I wouldn't start off explaining it like a deck of cards. I would say troops. So you have a range of different troops, because then that takes out that, because you're throwing... I understand what you're saying with cards, and that's why I say it's quite difficult. I understand what you're saying, because it is similar to something like a Hearthstone or something like that, where you use a card to attack. But obviously in Hearthstone, the card remains a card. It obviously does things, but it still remains a card. Whereas in Clash Royale, you theoretically have what appears to be a card, but when you play it in the game, it becomes a group of skeletons, or it becomes a dragon, and it becomes these different things, and then it goes around and it fights, depending on how you've played it, it fights in a certain way, and it fights certain people. But I've really been enjoying the kind of the leveling up aspect. I get really annoyed that I can't find certain cards that everyone else seems to have, because there's
side note, have you spent money yet?
Real world money?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, I'm very close to dropping 15 quid on it.
I'm not. And I won't be. I don't think. I can't see a future
Dan,
where I'm deciding to.
But Dan, for £15, you could get an ultra magical chest, and in that is going to be a bunch of guaranteed super rare cards, which are going to make
guaranteed bunch of guff that you've already got.
Yeah, but you can use those to like level up things, because obviously, at the moment, I'm leveling up my archers, so I've got these like those pink hair lady archer thingies, and
I've noticed you keep requesting people to help you with cards.
Yeah, in the clan that we're in, like I keep asking for those, because I kind of figure like if I focus on those and maybe like one other card type, then people will get to the point where they're like, oh well, I know that I can just keep giving like Pete these cards. He's going to use them. I probably won't ever use them, and I can actually just keep leveling those up and getting them to a point where they're really powerful. They're like really surprisingly powerful units to actually deploy. But I have noticed that those really rare cards, they're just in terms of like Magic the Gathering talk, they are bombs. Like they are. Like if you drop a knight, for example, or if you drop a giant onto the thing, and suddenly your opponent is immediately like
everything on them,
everything on that. That is a real problem right now. So are you? What arena are you at?
I think I'm in arena 3. I think you're in arena 4, but we're the same. I think we're at the same level, because obviously your leveling up is based on the cards that you level up. And then the arena is based on how many victory points you've gained.
Oh, yeah.
What I do, and it's really annoying, is that I will go through a spell of doing really well, and then suddenly I will go 5, 6, 7, 10 games where I just cannot find a win for the life of me. And because of that, my score... Because the way it works is, when you win a match, you get a chest. And then, depending on the arena that you're in, the chest has certain cards. So the higher the arena, the better the cards. But the problem is when you start losing, your points go down, and you can drop into the arena below, which means when you do start winning again, you're actually getting worse off cards than you would have been before. And it's really infuriating when you just seemingly can't buy a win, because everything you try and do, I've got to literally within 2 seconds of a win, and then it's been stolen from me right at the last second. And that is like... want to throw my phone against the wall style fury.
It's weird, right? Because it's so coming from a background of talking and criticizing and understanding mobile games a lot. What we're talking about here is you and I think are getting close to what's called a churn point, and the churn point is effectively the point that you stop playing the game forever. And I feel like whenever I get one of those long lose streaks, and I feel like this wasn't my fault, like I feel like I was just going up against opponents that was way too high level for me, that's the point where I get to either I'm going to stop playing this game, or I'm going to start spending money. And obviously, I'm sure Supercell want you to do the latter, but it does feel like the game... There was a point where I was playing one game out of 3 games. I usually win 1, maybe 2. Like I'd win 1.5 out of 3 games, right? Like it was a pretty good record. And now that I'm in Pekka's arena, or whatever it's called, as soon as I get into Pekka's arena, I just lose. Maybe 1 win, lose, and then drop down to the arena below. And as you say, it's just massively frustrating because I know that I can't get access to that next set of cards. That next.
I think you do. I think with that kind of thing, I think you've got the same problem as I have because I'm kind of walking that tightrope between this Arena 2 and Arena 3. So you fall down into Arena 2 and you're the strongest one there. So you can defeat everyone. You move up and you're the weakest one there. And so you keep going back and forth. So what you eventually need to be able to do is at least just get a foothold in that next step up. And then you can build on that. And then you have the same problem as you're now having. That next step up, again, you're then kind of flip-flopping between the two. Eventually you need to get a foothold and then build yourself up again. And it's just infuriating because you need to be there longer to get the cards that everyone else has.
But otherwise, other than this like criticism of it, which I do have, I've got to say, like this is a game that's been on my phone the longest for a really long time. Like this, certainly in terms of free to play games, like I've put more time into this than anything else. Like traditional big free to play recently. I've got to say, it really is a class act all round. Like visually. It just looks absolutely beautiful. Like matchmaking, it takes seconds.
What's great about it as well is the fact that as you say, matchmaking takes seconds, and then the match itself takes about 2 minutes. Yeah, and that's it. And you don't. There's no commitment to play again after that. You can stop. You can carry on, and if you want to carry on again, it's a few seconds, and you're into another game.
Which really infuriates me about other MOBAs. Like whenever I've tried to play Dota or League of Legends, have I played League of Legends? Well, certainly Dota and Heroes of the Storm. The game says to you, all right, sit down for 45 minutes and play this thing. Heroes of the Storm maybe 25, 30 minutes, but Dota is like you're in for the long haul. And if you lose at the end of that match, you just think, well, like, what have I achieved this evening? As somebody who has got a job, like that is not what I want out of a multiplayer session. I want to win one, lose one. That's the ideal. And if I just get a long streak of losing because I'm an early I'm a beginner at the game, I'm just immediately like, I don't care anymore. But this is if I have a losing streak of 5, 7, 10 losses, I'm like, well, it's only cost me 20 minutes, and as soon as you get that next victory, you think, oh, brilliant, I'll just keep going.
I'm back on the horse.
I'm back on the horse, yeah. The other thing I really like about it is it ties into this collectible card game thing that I've got in two ways, where, it does feel like you are collecting cards, and it does feel like you are improving your stable of your deck and thinking strategically about what your deck contains, like that meta. And also what I like about it is there are very clearly lots of different tactics for using the units that you have, and you only really understand them after a long period of time. Like initially, my one and only tactic really was drop a giant and just let it wander off. Yeah. Then the next tactic was actually what you want to do is drop a giant and surround it by skeletons, a skeleton army, so that absorbs a load of the hits. Yeah. And then my next tactic was actually and this is what I start using now. I use a P.E.K.K.A. instead, a mini P.E.K.K.A. I should say, which is kind of fulfills similar roles to what the giant does, except for that it doesn't ignore units. But I send it off on the right-hand side track or the left-hand side track, the track basically where I'm not focusing my attentions. Yeah. So what I do is I send a really hardcore unit down the other side of the track that I'm not interested in actually destroying. So the enemy has to focus loads of their materials to actually get rid of that thing, and then I'm just like, like it's really funny that we have such similar strategies because I do almost the exact same thing. Where I will front load one side, and I wait until I can see that they've put a load of effort into that, and then I know that they've got nothing left at the moment to fight off the other side. So I just send in a guy who I know is going to get there quick. He's going to do a lot of damage. He might not destroy the whole tower, but he's going to take a lot of life off it. Yeah. And then suddenly we're both equal because we then both have equal kind of mana, but he's down half a tower. And it's funny you explaining your stages of your strategy because it's the exact same process that I went through. I started off with a giant because he was like, he takes loads of damage. And then, hang on a minute, he's dying before he gets there. I need to throw some skeletons around him to take all the heat off him. And then that worked. And then actually I was like, you know what?
he's great, but he's a bit slow. Is there anyone else who could be better? And then you develop that as you get more cards and you learn how they work. And you see how other people use them against you.
So I've been playing a game called Astro Attack. So this is it's a game by Blocky Pixel Studios, and it's like. Did you play Crossy Road? I don't want to be too sort of reductive, but did you play Crossy Road?
Remind me. I've got a feeling I did, but I can't remember it.
So Crossy Road is like Frogger, but 3D and looks a little bit like Minecraft 3D blocks, and the idea is that you tap on the screen to make the chicken jump forward, and you swipe up or down or left or right to make it go to a different side.
I don't think I really played it, but I think I do remember. Maybe I remember you talking about it.
Okay,
but I never played it.
So it was pretty big. It was a pretty big deal, and like did ridiculous numbers online and all that sort of stuff. Like, you know, it was an App Store classic and all that kind of thing. Anyway, so the reason I bring it up is lots of studios would go to take its like monetization method, which is basically through playing the game you unlock coins and then you put those coins into a slot and then you turn the slot and then you get a new character. So it's like you're using one of those gachapon machines, and like, or you know, those little machines that you get in like Sainsbury's and Tesco's and stuff like that, where you get a little ball, and inside the ball is a character, but you don't know which character you're going to get. Anyway, Astro Attack. So it uses that same thing. So you're unlocking different characters using that, but the actual gameplay itself is very, very different. It's like Space Invaders, basically. It's like an endless Space Invaders. Not quite as stilted as Space Invaders. You know how you've got, you know, aliens that come down the screen.
Pew, 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 pew.
Not quite as stilted as that. And you've got to destroy them. So you've got a little spaceship at the bottom of the screen. You press your finger on the screen. You can move the ship about quite freely. It's not just left and right. It's up, down as well. And you automatically shoot. And the idea is to get rid of as many of these aliens as possible and keep playing and that kind of thing. It's an endless shooter, basically, an endless action game. But it's got some really slick ideas in it as well. Like visually, I think it looks really great. It's like this blend of 3D and 2D, and definitely has like a retro pixel look. And it's like really referential. So it's got your typical Space Invaders, Aliens-esque looking kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, well, this is part of the course. But then the ships that you unlock, there's like the Die Fighter, which is a dice with little wings on the side that looks like a TIE fighter, suspiciously like a TIE fighter. And then there's references to, I want to say that there's like a Firefly reference in there as well. It's like lots of different ships from lots of different things. And then like you can unlock like Dreamcast spacecraft and stuff like that, and like PlayStation and Game Boy spacecraft and stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. So really sort of like geeky, self-referential, you know, understanding of geek culture kind of stuff. But what I really like about it is mechanically there's some cool ideas in there as well. It's, you know, it's a one-handed kind of a game. Like it is a you know, you've not got to turn the screen side. It's all played in portrait, so you're just playing with your thumb, and it's simple and straightforward enough to the point that you don't have to be concentrating super hard like a bullet hell shooter like an Espgaluda or a Death Smiles or something like that. But it's interesting enough to the point that you actually do have to actively play the game. You've got to dodge things, you know, the enemies are going to fire bullets at you and all that sort of stuff. But the power-up system is the thing I really love. So you can get, individually, you can get boosts to the bullets that you fire out. So you've got individual shots normally, you just go boo, 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 and then you can get one that fires out rapidly like a machine gun. So you go boo, 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 and that lasts for like maybe 7-10 seconds or something like that. But if you add another power-up onto the end of it, like a different power-up, so a spread shot, for example, where you've got 3 bullets firing out in different directions, and you add that to the machine gun one that you already have, then the spread shot becomes a machine gun spread shot, and it lasts slightly longer. So you can chain these power-ups, and it's only ever temporary boost that makes you feel super, super powerful and glad that you went after the enemy that had that extra bonus. You've got an iPhone, haven't you?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so it's going to be on iPhone and obviously iPad as well. It's also coming to Android. Oh, it's free as well. I don't think this is going to do as big numbers as Crossy Road, which, by the way, you should play. But I don't think it's going to do as big numbers as that. But it's a really slick shooter. I've been playing mechanically complex games. So we were talking about like Clash Royale, talked about Astro Attack, like Trackmania Turbo. I've been playing on PS4.
Oh yeah,
and so you played the demo?
Yeah,
there's a demo apparently.
Yeah, I've not purchased it. The demo. Obviously, not having the full game.
Yeah.
I don't know how much is missing from that, but kind of.
Okay, so what's in the demo, and I'll tell you what's in the full game.
Well, the demo gives you seemingly just a couple of. I played through a couple of tracks, and it didn't get to a point where it told me I couldn't not do any more. But what I was more interested in was the kind of the online multiplayer stuff. So obviously, in the main solo campaign, you're kind of racing against your own times, either your own times or the gold, silver, and bronze times. So a few of those tracks. But then, what was really interesting in the online racing, when you log in, it kind of says, "This is the demo, this is the trial." So you've got an hour of trial time, basically.
Yeah,
I've only used half an hour, so I've still got half an hour left to play at another point. Because it doesn't just start then and then run on. It gives you an hour of play time. So I've only used half an hour of that at the moment. But then basically you find yourself a server, drop yourself in, and then it's got a match, it's got a race there that you're in with about, depending on how many people, it could be 10 other people, could be 20, could be 30 other people, and then it just goes through loops for about 5 minutes. You just loops that. It's a short track, and it'll just loop through, and you try and you're racing, and you're racing against everyone else. No one else is physically on the track with you. You can see ghost versions of their cars as they drive. I'm assuming that I'm not sure if those are live or if that's just their best times. I don't know.
Oh no, those are right. So is that in multiplayer?
Yeah,
that's live. So it's actually up to 100 players, and all of those ghosts are live, which means that you really are all racing at exactly the same time. So I've got the full game. I got it on day of release. I don't know about you, but Trackmania I love in and of itself. It feels like a Trackmania game. It feels like a traditional Trackmania game, but made slightly more console friendly. And the actual driving physics of the whole thing, I just feel it's so tactile. Like it's so like it like you never feel cheated. Mm-hmm. Like you never feel like, oh well, the engine fell apart, or oh well, that clearly wasn't my fault. You always feel like, nope, I screwed up.
I think there are certain times, and obviously my play experience is limited, but there are certain times where I've played it and I've kind of thought, you know what, I physically don't know how where else that time is, because I'll have gone through. There'll be a certain race, and it'll be physically I've taken every corner as close as I can. I've not bumped anything to slow me down, and everything I've gone through everything as fast as I can, and yet I'm still 3 seconds behind the person in first. And I get, because I think, maybe there is a feature where you can look at how other people are playing a race. So maybe they're doing something that's obvious that I'm just not. But there are certain times that you do kind of get with any type of racing game, to be fair, that has competitiveness. You always get that thing of, I physically don't know where this other 3 seconds can possibly come from, because I am hitting every note and my finger never comes off full on the accelerator. So I've looked at some of those top times, and you would be surprised at how sloppy your and my driving is in comparison to the people who are putting in world record times. Like, I completely agree with you. Like, you're zipping around these tracks. Sometimes you got laps. Sometimes you got, it's just individual one shots. The individual one shots, I don't know if you've noticed this, but they are like so much harder
than the lap ones. Like,
I've only really done the one shots.
Oh, okay. So there's actually lap versions as well, where you go around a specific circuit 3 times, and though they are actually harder to be more consistent, like you've got to be consistent basically with those 3 lap ones, but they're not as technically demanding as the individual ones. But I've looked at some of these world record times and the ghosts that go with them, and just it's literally a question of technique. Like, your and my technique is literally just not as good enough.
Yeah.
Like, these people are taking corners within hair's breadths of the the sharp wall that's actually jutting out from the corner itself, but they're just skimming past it by pixels, and it shaves off 1/100 of a second.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they do it. Like, it's genuinely impressive.
I'll tell you what game it reminds me of, and only in certain, and the probably the mechanics are stronger in Trackmania Turbo. The game it reminds me of is Mario Kart.
I think I know exactly why.
And the reason I say that is years ago in Mario Kart Wii. I mean, I know that didn't get great reviews. It wasn't well received by a lot of people.
It was fine.
I really enjoyed it. And both me and Sam of this parish, we both played it, and there was a specific level that we used to race each other on, and we would both, because obviously we were friends online on the Wii, and one of the features of Mario Kart was you had like time trials and you had ghost cars, so you could go against each other, and we would both be within 1/100 of a second around this one course, and both of us would be hitting kind of, as you say, within a hair's breadth of each corner, drifting for just the perfect amount of time. And obviously the kind of the mechanics of Trackmania Turbo are stronger, so the drifting is more organic. You feel like you're in control of it rather than just press a button, drift as long as you physically can, and then let go. But I do get that same feeling when I was going up, especially maybe in the solo campaigns when I'm just one-on-one, and you can see yourself going kind of ahead of your previous time or dropping behind your previous time, and you can see that's where I should be, that's where I've been before, or that's where my friend has been, and that's what it reminded me of, which is a good thing because I loved Mario Kart Wii. I absolutely loved it.
I honestly think that you drop in the 20 quid or whatever it is on Trackmania Turbo, I honestly think it would be worth doing them, because that's it. Like, that is the game. Like, beyond the trial that you get, it is just more of that. And I must have put like 10 or 11 hours in at this point, which, doesn't sound like a lot, but considering the amount of gaming time I actually have at the moment, but
considering the amount how the game plays, a lap or a kind of one run can take 40 seconds.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that you put in 12 hours is actually a lot, considering 40 seconds per run.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it is genuinely fantastic. Like, it keeps me going. The one thing that makes me a bit anxious whenever I play it is towards the end of the campaign itself. Like, you were talking about the campaign mode, which is like single player essentially. You've got to unlock the very final set of tracks. You've got to basically gold medal everything up to that point. And I've basically resigned myself to the fact that I will never see those last sets of tracks, because I just don't see how I'm going to gold medal everything.
Yeah.
Like, there are just certain tracks where I'm like, I scraped silver and I'm happy. Like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to, like, some of the lagoon ones, for example, the car and I just don't get on.
Yeah.
Like, and it just feels like it would be, I would get up to the point where I would then only be able to progress if I got gold medals, and it would be another 20 or 30 hours of playing the game and going back and trying. And at that point, I kind of feel like, well, that's not really my jam. Like,
but I think
want to move on.
What's interesting about it is when in some of the kind of the limited solo campaign races that I did, was that I would go around a track and I would do it in a way so I would say be drifting around a big corner or something like that, and I'd do quite well and I'd get silver or something like that. And then another time, kind of by accident, I wouldn't drift, and I would just hold on an accelerator, but I've hit the corner at a certain angle that I realised, hang on a minute, I'm losing time because I've pressed brake to drift, and that's costing me time because I actually don't need to do that. If I hit it at a slightly different angle, I can just use my own velocity to bring me around that whole corner, because if I'd done it at a wrong angle, I go straight into a wall.
Yeah. But there is a science.
It's one of those things of sometimes just discovering that almost by mistake, and then be like, okay, so for all this time when I thought there was no time for me to get out of this race, now that's where the time comes from.
Yeah, and it often comes from a place where, if I end the drift on this side of the track, I can just hold left and I will not have to brake through this corner.
Yeah.
And finding that sort of stuff. There are also really devious shortcuts every once in a while.
Okay.
Like you'll find one where you're like, I could just jump this massive section of track, and that's exactly how I'm going to get the gold medal. Like
there was one bit which made me laugh, and it was in one of the online races, and I can't decide if it was just something funny or if it was a bug. But there was a bit where I kind of went around the track, and the track goes on like a ramp. And then you have to kind of hold quite low on the ramp, or they'll just go flying off. One time I went flying off, and I went flying through the air, and then I landed outside the track on the ground. But I was still in control of the car.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm just driving around the wilderness now. And I fully stayed in control, and it wasn't until I restarted the lap that it took me back to the start. And I was like...
Yeah, you can explore as much as you want. Yeah.
But there was nothing to explore, though. It was just a desert.
But that's what Nadeo does, right? And I'm glad that Ubisoft kind of understands this about what Nadeo does. Like, Nadeo makes games in the Mania series, Trackmania being the main one, that they just do things where you're like... Why have you gone down this... I mean, this is fun, but I don't understand why you've gone down this route. Like, there's have you seen double driver mode?
Yeah. I know what that is. Yeah, I can't imagine how that could possibly work.
So yeah, like the idea of having two people controlling the same car, like we must both press left at the same time, otherwise we will not turn left. Like that's ludicrous, but it's fun. Like it's just a silly bit of fun. Like there's if you press the touchpad on the PlayStation 4 controller, it changes the music presence. So if you feel like you're about to go through a really like holy shit, this is an amazing moment, you can just press the touchpad and it will drop all the car engine sounds out, and you'll just get that like weird electro European techno beat, and you're just like, why would you? Again, like that's a thing you would probably relegate to a menu if you were a developer.
Yeah.
But they're just like, nah, we've got an extra button. Like why not do something with it? But it's as I say, I've really enjoyed it, but I must admit, like this month, it's in terms of games, it's been all about like being technically excellent at them.
Yeah.
You actually got. Like, why did you start watching them in the first place?
I think I'd have just been looking on YouTube randomly, and I'd have probably just come across one of them. It would have just been, I was looking at stuff, and maybe I looked at something on wrestling, and then in the sidebar it would have been, I don't know, top 10 matches with men.
Yeah.
So I went,
classic
let
YouTube.
me look at that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing though, right? Like, but why would you? I guess that's my question, right? Why would you click on a video about wrestling? Why wouldn't you just? Like, if I saw a video about cooking, I wouldn't immediately... Well, actually, maybe with cooking
What I will have done is... I'm just guessing because I know my own brain. The only thing I do kind of regularly do with regards to wrestling is I will read the wrestling wrap-up, the weekly wrestling wrap-up on IGN.
Yeah. Because
I like the style of writing, and it's quite funny. And I'm interested in that world, so I'm always interested to see what's going on without really getting into it. And the heel will probably mention something in these article that I would have thought, that sounds interesting. I wonder what actually happened there. I wonder what that looked like. So I went onto YouTube to find it, and that would have led me down the path of wrestling videos.
Wonderful world of wrestling videos. That's the thing, right? I'm exactly the same. Like because I do like wrestling from a distance. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I definitely watched wrestling a fair amount, like at least every weekend, I would say. So I had a friend who had, I think, was it on Sky it was shown?
Yeah, it was on Sky. It was on Sky Sports.
Yeah. What a good term for it. I suppose it is sport, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's sports entertainment.
Sports entertainment. Yeah. That's the legal line. So I would watch it like every weekend and stuff like that. I wouldn't watch Monday Night Raw because obviously I wasn't at his house, but I'd watch like catch up. So I'd watch like WWE Heat or WF Heat or whatever it was called, and like it was just like wrap ups of the lesser matches, and then there was SmackDown, Friday Night SmackDown or whatever it was called.
Well, from my memories of it, because I probably watched it something similar to you, maybe a bit more because I kind of had Sky. I would watch Friday Night Raw. In obviously it's actually released on a Monday. It's Monday Night Raw, but in the UK it came out on Friday night.
Oh right.
And then I believe SmackDown came out in America. It was out on a Thursday. I think it was Thursday night SmackDown. But in the UK it would be shown I think around midday on a Saturday. I think they showed a late night version as well. But they that was the kind of one at midday. It was the ones where if someone hit someone with a chair, the screen paused when the it paused at the point just before the point of impact, and then cut to the crowd. So all you heard was the noise of everything happening, and then it cuts back to a guy sprawled out on the floor.
And I love the idea that in terms of censorship, they were okay with everything that led up to that point. A man punching another man in the face, a man throwing another man onto the floor, two ladies wearing very little wrestling with each other. But the point that as a fold-away chair gets an inch towards somebody's face, that's the point where they have to look away and go, oh, no, we can't tell you quite what happened here. You could probably put it together by the fact that you saw the chair being swung in his general direction. And as it cuts away,
you hear a thunk.
Yeah, and I guess because that must have been censorship, right? That must have been you can't show somebody using a weapon against another human being.
That would have been a kind of a watershed type thing. As I say, on the Friday Night Raw, which came out at 10 o'clock, I think it was shown. You kind of showed everything.
Yeah.
Whereas on the morning show, which came out around either like 11 a.m. or midday, that's when it would cut away. So it was before the watershed. So I think they showed the late night one, so they could give you all the chair shots you needed.
You could see Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy put other people through. Was it tables that they did? Oh no, it was the Hardy Boys. No,
Hardy Boys were ladders.
Hardy Boys were ladders. Right? So there was tables, ladders, and chairs. So ladders was Hardy Boys. Who were chairs?
Chairs, because it was tables and chairs. Because Dudley Boys were tables.
Yeah,
and
Dudley Boys were tables,
they needed. I remember this actually because I remember being really excited about this match because I really liked the Hardy Boys at the time, and they wanted to have a 3-team thing, and they had Edge and Christian, but they didn't really have anything to give them because they didn't have a signature weapon, so they just kind of went, "You can have chairs." They just basically, in like the 2 weeks before announcing the match, they just made them use chairs a lot, so it seemed like that was their thing.
Retconning chairs into their history. And of course, the thing with the Dudley Boys was the only person who could set. There was such a good partnership because the only person who could actually set the table up was, of course, Devon. Because the other dude would say, "Devon, please go and get the table," or something like that. Something to that effect. But that's the thing, right? Like, I never understood why they didn't just get the table in there straight away. Like, I didn't understand why both parties, the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, why they didn't just immediately get out of the ring, both of them, and go, right, well, we're just going to go and get the tables and ladders right now, rather than wait for an inopportune moment where they're like, oh, now after I've taken a severe beating to the head, like, now's the time that I go underneath the mat.
Well, that's the point. He's taken a severe beating to the head. At that point, it's a good idea to go get the tables.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that, like, narratively, what they were trying to say is you've got to be really dumb to want to. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm with that. So you were saying. So are the Dudley Boys? So are they still around?
They are still around. I mean, one of the reasons because we wanted to talk about this is I think we're the only people of our group who would actually be able to have this conversation. So the fact of the matter that Sam's off gallivanting in New York, Chris is off gallivanting in Malta, Tom's off gallivanting somewhere, I don't know where he is at the moment. So I just thought, perfect opportunity that we could take over the airwaves and just have this nice little chat. But
this is the thing, right? Like, this to me, as I say, like, my interest in wrestling is quite step back. It's quite fun. I like to like pop my head through the door of wrestling every once in a while. Go, oh, what's going on in here? Absolute madness. Fantastic. Glad it's all still going strong. But this to me is I guess the closest thing that I have to like soccer.
Okay.
Like, I guess in terms of I have a certain amount of cultural cachet in wrestling. Like, I can talk about it. Like, whenever you start talking about, I don't know, Klinsmann or whatever.
That's your point of reference.
Sheringham, like you know, all these other footballers. I don't really understand who they are, but when you say Gold Dust, I'm like, well, yeah, obviously I know who Gold Dust is. Yeah. Yeah, no, okay, but so do you still? Obviously, you were saying like you check in on the IGN thing, which I've seen that article. You know, it's like a weekly thing. It's really good. It's a really, really good, like, quick way of catching up on what's going on with that stuff. Like, do you? So why do you keep in with it? I was going to say, why do you keep up with it? Like,
I mean, I keep up with it because I left it behind for a long, long time because, you know what, it's a bit silly, and it was a thing that I enjoyed as a child, and it is quite childish.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, it's got a huge kind of following from a more adult sense, but I think it's people who've grown up with it in the same way that kind of we did. And I kind of checked back in it with a couple of years ago, and I found the kind of article, and it was really interesting. It was a fun way of looking at it, and the article itself doesn't take itself seriously. It's Matt Fowler, the writer. Goes into kind of detail of actually what's going on and kind of talks to the audience like an adult.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. And obviously, when we were watching it, what's referred to as the Attitude Era, that was kind of one of their big high points. And I think a lot of the fans, my understanding anyway, a lot of hardcore fans now kind of look back at those days, were kind of put them up on a pedestal. And so because of that, you do get the big heroes from that era coming back, because the WWE have to kind of keep recycling them to kind of get that. To be clear, what is the Attitude Era? The Attitude Era was a kind of period of time where the storylines that they used were much more edgy or more adult orientated. They would be cursing. They would be having characters who would be drinkers, who would swear. There would be blood. All that stuff. For children and kind of little young boys, it's kind of like, oh wow, it's amazing, this guy's fighting and doing all this great stuff. And that was what was known as the Attitude Era. And I think it was my understanding, because I'd stopped watching it once it kind of when it changed, so I hadn't been watching at that point. I think through various different things that happened, that the people behind the scenes, the company, decided that it was going to become more family friendly, and so they toned down all that stuff. So, for example, stuff like you don't really get blood in it anymore. When we would have watched it, you'd have had a lot of that, because the kind of the whole concept of I think I was referred to as blading, where literally people would cut themselves to bleed from the head and stuff like that, which is insane.
Yeah.
But it was a common thing. Not in kind of, they didn't hurt themselves or anything. Well, obviously they did hurt themselves. They're cutting their heads through, but they didn't do kind of permanent damage or anything like that. But it became too much, and I think they cut back on that and they outlawed that. So that's kind of not allowed to happen anymore.
So this is the Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mankind, Undertaker, Kane, The Rock.
When I was watching it, I loved the character of The Rock. And so when he comes back, I'm still interested, because I remember there was a thing. It was a couple of years ago. They had their WrestleMania, which is the kind of the big showpiece of the year, and they had a thing where each year they had a host of WrestleMania, and they did this. The one year they said, and the new host is going to be, and then all the lights in the arena turn off, and it's kind of everyone goes silent, and then The Rock's music hits, and everyone just goes, "Oh my god, this is amazing! He's a Hollywood star, but he's here again!" Blah, blah. and it's like that. And he comes out and he does all his shtick, he does all his catchphrases, but he sits there in this huge arena with the entire audience in the palm of his hand, and it was great to see, and it kind of like, yeah, that's what I used to like. That fun aspect.
Did he finally reveal what it was that he was cooking?
that remains a mystery for a mystery for our time. I think. I don't think we'll ever quite find out what it is that he is cooking.
Yeah,
I can smell it, but I don't quite know what it is.
Yeah, what is that smell? I can't quite tell what it is that you're cooking. The Rock, Dwayne. Absolutely. When you're talking about people with the palm, keeping the audience in the palm of their hand, you are 100% right, and that is why I check in on it every once in a while. Sometimes I'll fall down like a Wikipedia and YouTube rabbit hole where I'll basically just splurge for an hour and a half and just catch up on what's happened.
Yeah.
And it's that feeling of, it's the unexpected that WWF / now WWE does, and did, of the EastEnders and the Coronation Street, oh my goodness, I never saw that twist coming kind of a thing. Like, it's the here's a regular match just between two people, and you're not massively interested, and it just seems like a regular match, and then suddenly a character who hasn't been in it for 5 years comes back, and you're like, oh my god, like Ric Flair's back, like what? Why on earth is he back? Like, that's amazing, or what have you. And to me, that always it's a slightly cheap thrill, though I'm sure there's clearly a lot of staging expertise that goes on with that, but that slightly cheap thrill of oh, this is really exciting, this like shivers running up your spine, of oh, I remember this person, and I remember all of the things that were associated with this person. Like, it's why when I think of Hulk Hogan and I think of that era of wrestling, because I had a friend who had Sky when he was like 4 or 5, when we were very, very young. And he would have access to that sort of stuff, and I would every once in a while get to watch Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and Jake the Snake and all of these characters who were way before the Attitude Era. It's why when I think back to that era, I think of very different personalities and very different feelings for it. Like, I smile more when I think about Dink and Doink, who were two wrestling clowns, which was kind of ridiculous. I smile about that because I think, oh, what a cute, lovely time to be alive and watching that. And then I get that sort of lightning thrill of seeing somebody like The Rock come down on stage, or a better example would be Chris Jericho coming down that ramp. You were always like, this is going to be brilliant. Whatever he's about to do is going to be A, super cool, and B, really, really exciting, because he is technically a very competent sports person, very, very athletic person, and clearly knows what they're doing. And win or lose, it's going to be a really exciting match. And I get these different. Whenever these different people come back, there is this different level of like nostalgia for those things.
And I think one of the reasons that it's kind of made me think of kind of the nostalgia around it at the moment is they've in recent times they've brought back certain characters, kind of more of the McMahon family, and especially the son, Shane McMahon, who's been out of kind of, I think my understanding is he left the business for a number of years. And at WrestleMania, which is just kind of at time of recording just happened, they had him go up against The Undertaker. And it's the big thing of that match was he tried to leap off the top of a Hell in a Cell cage, which is like a 20-foot cage which circles the ring with a roof, jump from the top of that onto a table at the on the floor. Right. On top of his opponent, but the opponent moves at the last second, so he just goes bang. And it's kind of, something like that. I think we joke about the fact that yes, it's a soap opera, and it is a soap opera. We joke that it's fake, and it's obviously fake, and it's ridiculously, hilariously fake at times. But at the end of the day, also, these guys are proper athletes, and they put their bodies through so much crap. And there's many stories about guys getting addicted to pain medication because they put their bodies through so much. And obviously you go back to the whole thing of cutting themselves to put on a show, and that's what it is. They are performers. They aren't just two guys who like to fight. They are putting on a performance. They are trying to tell a story. And I think that's why it kind of, when I was younger, it kind of got me. And so when they bring these stuff back, I am interested, because I'm like, I remember that feeling I had. And when you see things like a guy leaping off 20-foot cage, who has no right to be there because he's a guy who's been a businessman for the last 5 years and has been brought back because we need a boost in the ratings. Can you please jump off that 20-foot cage onto the concrete?
Yeah.
And he says, okay, I'll do that.
That sounds like a thing I would do.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know full well that what he lands on has an element of padding. And that's obvious there because obviously he's not going to land on concrete. But still, jumping 20 feet, you need an awful lot of padding that you can't see. And
if Jerry Lawler's telling you he's landed onto the concrete, you're like, all right.
Yeah, I'll take that. Because everyone knows, other than like small children, everyone knows it's fake.
Yeah,
everyone knows.
But I mean, like, and not to bring the the level of conversation down a bit, but in some ways it doesn't matter because wrestling isn't about reality. It's about legend, and it's the same principles as Greek myth. It's the same, or to a lesser extent superhero mythology and that kind of thing. You are potentially exploring things about society within a performance. And
over the years you've had many different storylines around kind of brothers and fathers and sons and for that. You've had Shakespearean levels of story to try to put it in there, but framing it around two guys punching each other in the middle of a squared ring.
Yeah, exactly. Now here's the thing, right? Like, I'm not going to say that a barbed wire, cage match or, a Hell in a Cell match or whatever it is the exact same level of quality, sophisticated storytelling as you like it, right? I'm not here to make that argument, but I guess the point is that human beings like to tell stories in lots and lots and lots of different ways, and this really it's melodrama, it's soap opera, it's epic storytelling, and it does feed something quite human, which is I want to idolize a form of perfection that is human and very immediately there. Like, they are actually on a stage performing. There's very few, there's not camera tricks, there's not CGI, there's nothing like that. It is literally some dude in a suit jumping 20 foot off of something. Like, and that is really impressive.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. Like, I definitely feel the pangs of nostalgia every once in a while.
I think one of the things that I think really makes it work is the fact of, and I've noticed it more since I've read more about it in more recent years, the idea of the audience with a soap opera, with your EastEnders, your Coronation Street, all those kind of soap operas. You root for a storyline, you want something to happen, but you know what? You're very separated. They're on a screen, you're just sitting there.
Yeah. Because
it's a live environment, you have an audience, and an audience will naturally get behind a certain person, a certain athlete, regardless of whether or not the company was planning in a storyline to make them great. The audience will spot someone, like them, develop a rapport, and build on that. Now, at times the company may just the writers may decide, I don't care what the audience thinks, I'm going to do it my way, and that's it. But also, if it goes the other way and they think, okay, there's so much kind of support for this particular character, we need to follow through with it, gives the audience then a sense of belonging, of we've got this person to where they are, we've influenced this story, we are part of the story, which I think is a really, really interesting idea. I mean, if you think back to when we watched The Rock, he would refer to himself as the people's champion. That's he would fight for the people, and they loved him for that. And that was when you think about it, it's actually something that you don't get in any other type of entertainment. That kind of interaction of you influencing actually what's going to happen. The closest you get is video games, and in video games you're still following the linear pattern that's been laid out for you. You can't, if you're playing Uncharted and you like Masked Enemy number 4, there's nothing you can do to make him the star of that game. You're going to stick with the path that you've been given. And so it's kind of a really interesting dynamic that doesn't appear anywhere else. And I've only realised that more so when you look at, I think, certain storylines in recent years. And you look back on where it's very much been the underdog has been pulled up by the audience all the way through to the very top. And it's really, really effective to watch. That was Staying In with Daniel Frost and Peter Willington. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit stayingin.podbean.com for more information and links to the games and topics we've discussed in this episode. And come find us on Twitter on @StayingInPod. Thanks for listening.